Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday, February 21st, the day after. Oh, let me put this down a little. Sorry. The day after UFC Vegas 19, and had a couple of things happen over the weekend. Obviously, there was some boxing news with Adrian Broner's win, and that uh, LFA 100 was on Friday. If you have UFC Fight Pass and you know anything about one of their regional feeder leagues, it is Legacy Fighting Alliance. Um, and they crowned a new flyweight champion in Altam. Let me get that next. Victor Altamirano. And there's a nice knockout by Steve Wynn if you haven't checked that out. But before we move on to that, just make sure that you know where this video lives over at the MMAnews.com YouTube channel. I broadcast this on my personal Twitter account. That's my Twitter handle at Carbazel. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the MMAnews.com YouTube channel where we put all of our video content, including stuff like this. And we have interviews. This coming weekend is another Apex event, UFC Vegas, hashtag UFC Vegas 20. The interviews with Jaron Zeno, Rosenstrick. Sorry if I'm messing up anybody's names. Alex Hernandez and Cyril Gahn, who I just found out from James Lynch's interview. His name is pronounced Gahn, not Gain, as I was saying like an idiot this whole time. Shout out to James Lynch for putting in that work. All right. So as I said, LFA 100 have celebrated their 100th event, and the names that I mentioned again, Steve. I always said Nguyen, but apparently it's Win, and he's a featherweight that picked up a really significant knockout on Friday night. If you don't watch the LFA, you really need to, especially if you're a UFC fan. And then, when someone wins a title there, it seems like they get plugged into the UFC Rolodex for fights. I mean, and at flyweight, I know that's a division that picked up a lot of steam last year, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see Mr. Altamirano in the UFC, before the end of this year. So pretty big wins for those fellows. They're definitely on the radar of um, what's his name, Sean Shelby, Dana White, and Mick Maynard, and all those decision makers at the UFC looking for new fighters. Especially when you look at the state of things now with COVID and having fighters falling out and needing to find last minute fighters. You'll notice I didn't tweet. If you do follow me on Twitter, you'll notice I didn't tweet much this weekend. I'm mentioning it because I just took a drink. If you saw last week's video, I had an infection. Kind of got worse. I have eczema. Comes with the territory of living in New Jersey and having allergies and asthma. And with the winter and excessive hand washing, skin just got worse. So that's just a personal housekeeping note. So if you notice it, I'm sorry if I grossed anybody out, but I tend to be a gross guy sometimes. So now, all right, let's get to UFC Vegas 19's results. Bringing them up over from MMAnews.com. I mean, I'm a big fan when there's mad finishes on a card. That's right up my alley. So I just want to have them up on screen for reference. Share them with y'all. Here we go. Let's get this right. All right. So there's I think they broke a record last night. I forget what it was. I'm pretty sure I shared it on Twitter as I was trying to keep up with everything with one hand. But I'm trying to count. Let's see. We have the quick results with a breakdown, courtesy of Mr. Ravens over at MMAnews.com. Breakdown of the main card, and then you look at the quick results here. Let's see. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5, 6, 7 knockouts and a submission. I mean, that's a fun card. The weird thing here, you'll see a note about the featherweight bout. That was really odd because Chad Skelly was already in the cage when they canceled that bout right on the spot. I mean, what are you gonna do? Apparently, Jamal Emmers was suffering back spasms, and if you the just so you know, before we get into the results, that was canceled right on the spot, which was weird to see. Literally when one of the fighters was already in the cage. And then for COVID-19 protocols, a lightweight bout between Drakkar Klose and Luis Pena was postponed to a later date. So somebody must have tested positive or not checked in somewhere, or the UFC.com news update that they put out when the Skelly thing happened, Emmer Skelly thing happened, didn't really include any more details than that. I retweeted that as I was trying to catch up last night as well. So it's all over at UFC.com/news. I know their website's a little weird when you try to find specific things, but you can find that there. Anyway, but back to our results. So outside of that, the one fight's excuse me, Ayman Zahabi is the guy that everyone says looks like Ariel Helwani. And that seems to have been one of the more significant knockouts of the night. But for me, I'm going to show the highlight to you. John Castaneda, he got a TKO over Eddie Wineland. He was like the co-main event of the prelims. He got a TKO over Eddie Wineland in the first round. It's like 15 seconds into the first round. I wonder if I can bring that up. Yeah, let me show that to you because so John Castaneda was one of Combate America's like faces when they were on Fight Pass. I think they had a couple of guys from Combate go and try out for Contender Series. If I remember right, I don't remember. I know Castaneda when he first went to Contender Series. I don't know if he did it twice, but either way, if you get on Contender Series and lose, but you do a good outing, I think he lost by decision when I first saw him on the Contender Series. This was like the first run of Contender Series, if I'm remembering right. But I mean, it's a long time coming for Castaneda. I interviewed him when he was with Combate Americas. I mean, the guy is smart. He actually has master's degree, so he's already got like his backup plans. When I talk to him, he's a really smart, almost Renaissance man coming out of MMA. And if he's not on your radar, you definitely need to put him on your radar. And oddly enough, UFC shared the video. Let me just take this down for a minute. I want you to see this finish that he did. I have it up here. Because usually when they share the highlights, they don't. They always share the guy running around and celebrating. They don't show you the actual finish. But they did a good job with Sexy Mexi, which is his handle. Sexy Mexi 135. Here we go. Check this out. Look at that. Great win for him. So yeah, if John Castaneda is not on your radar, he needs to be, man. Look at those. Look at that. He's definitely. I mean, he was right there. They did a tournament type of thing. I remember the one time they came to New York. I think he was on that card, and it's probably the one time he missed weight. But I have a feeling. I mean, because they came to New York and did a whole media thing that I had the pleasure of being a part of in New York. I know when the temperatures drop around here, we tend to put on a few pounds. You know what I'm saying? So I'm guilty of it myself, as you can see by this chinage. But let me bring back up the results for you. So that was one finished that I thought was, I mean, for me, as you know, when you watch these fighters come up again, that's why I started with the LFA thing. When you watch these fighters come up the way that they do, it's nice to see them. They get to the mountaintop of what a lot of fighters want to get to the UFC. I feel like that dynamic is changing as the sport has grown so much. Bellator is doing so many good things now, that it's definitely a different ball game. But the UFC's they're the senior men on the blocks. Just like when you look at combat sports, the definition of fighting has changed. I know I've been saying this because I know we had some boxing last night. The definition, when I was growing up, if it was fight night, it was boxing. But now, when you say fights, for competition, the word fighting or the sport of fighting changes because it's one of these things that because of the evolution of combat sports with less rules than boxing. So boxing is now boxing to me anyway. It's my opinion. Boxing is boxing, and actual fighting is more closer to the rules of MMA. I know there's people that probably have sucking their teeth at that, but it is what it is, man. I mean, a lot of fights go to the ground in the streets. But anyway, unless you watch World Star Hip Hop, which I think is just knockouts, right? Street knockouts, but kicks and shit happen there too. So anyway, that was a knockout that stood out to me. Julian Erosa. I forget what the record was. Let me see if I can find that. There was a record broken already, or they tied it for most finishes on an event. Somebody put that out. I think I shared that though. Let me see if I can find out how many. I don't want to waste too much time looking for it. But anyway, listen, you got to give props when the UFC puts together, even with the two cards that fell out, they still put together a really good card. Some of my picks were off on the main card. I mean, Phil Hawes, when he got that win, Phil Hawes again is a guy. We have an interview with him over on the YouTube channel too about this very fight beforehand. So if you haven't checked it out, please check that out. And I'm going to talk about the Arlovsky loss in a minute too, but I'm trying to get to the significant wins first, and then I'll go through the other stuff. But he can't. I'm watching him come from the Northeast and fighting World Series of Fighting, making his way to UFC. I actually thought he was going to get another knockout, but I wasn't surprised by the majority decision win. I mean, Hawes is a beast, so again, that's why he's on the main card. He's definitely somebody you need to watch. And then the Yana Kuniskaya, I don't know why I picked against her. I don't remember when I submitted my picks to another outlet, but I'm glad she won because she was initially, when I was looking at the matchup, again, should always go with your gut. And I should have gone with my gut there. So a lot of significant wins, and obviously the main event with Derek Lewis knocking out Curtis Blades. So one thing, I mean, we might as well get into that right now, because of all this talk with the heavyweight division, and then looking at the interviews that we've had with Rosenstrike and Gane. One thing about the entry, about the heavyweight division, and guys like that, the guys with the talent that Derek Lewis has. There's I forget who called it that the ultimate equalizer is this one punch knockout, the puncher's chance, especially in the heavyweight division. When you look at guys with power like Derek Lewis. So talking about where I was wrong with my picks, and I know James Lynch, who did the interviews with the other fighters I just mentioned, put up the odds of he likes to put up odds of when the underdogs wins, which I wish I bet, because I don't like to pick a fighter based on their popularity. I try to look at their skills and their overall well-roundedness in mixed martial arts, and so that's why I had Blades picked to win, but the knockout in the second round by Derek Lewis, where he just catches him with it looked like Curtis Blades was doing what I was expecting him to do, which was to try to just control Derek Lewis and wrestle him and just frustrate him into fatigue, and maybe work for the finish later, or just do that for the entire fight. And apparently Derek Lewis, knowing he's always when he loses, he's always hard and critical on himself, and he always talks about improving. And even there's been a couple of times when he's won that he's been really hard on himself. So I think we're starting to see the evolution of Derek Lewis as a complete mixed martial artist. I know he once called himself the baddest blue belt in Texas, and all the funny stuff he says, but he is somebody that is improving significantly. So one of the things that looks like he knowing the reputation he has, he seems aware of it, and he seems of the game plans of, or potential game plans of, fighters looking to face him. And so if you watch, that's why I'm not going to put that highlight up, because that's one of the bad highlights that the UFC puts up. It's just Derek Lewis separating. You don't see the finish. So what happens is Blades is coming for like a takedown, and it's funny because Boss Rutan has an instructional where he does like a spinning like palm strike where he with the elbow from his pancrase days, where he strikes with the bone. So Derek Lewis kind of did the same thing. He did an uppercut right onto which Blades pretty much shot into, and that was pretty much the end of the game for him there. Um, excuse me, burping a lot. Probably my antibiotics messing with my gut. Um, but so he catches him with the uppercut. And Blades falls back, and then the finish comes, and people were, of course, there's a bunch of memes out there about how long it took Herb Dean to stop the fight. Some people were giving Derek a little bit of grief over excessive strikes, but I mean, listen, how many times and I hate to say this, but it looks like well, I'm not going to say anything. I like Herb Dean as a ref. I've always liked Herb Dean as a ref, but I mean, I feel like maybe sometimes you get bored with your job. Sometimes you're not, or you get a little complacent, and you're not as quick to jump on something as soon as you did in the past. But I mean, it's weird because the being an official is always. I always think about the thing that made me like the thing that made me outside of him having fought himself, Herb Dean. The thing I like about Herb Dean is when you look at the fight between I'm going to talk about all the levels with Andre Arlovsky and what the hell is the name of the fight? Why am I? He actually just had a GoFundMe thing. I'm going to look up Andre Arlovsky now. His face is in my head. The guy that he broke his arm when he was defending his title. This is what happens when you get old, folks. This is it's going to be a while ago before Tim Sylvia, right? I don't know. It was Frank Mir that broke Tim Sylvia. He did beat Tim Sylvia though in the past. Frank Mir. Wait a second, I might be wrong here. I'm confusing fights. Sorry, it was Frank Mir that broke Tim Sylvia's arm, not Andre Arlovsky. But it was Tim Sylvia that I was thinking about because it was the follow up after that. But anyway, the whole reason I'm bringing that up, yeah, UFC 48. That's why. That's why it's so long ago. Some of you guys watching this probably never even saw UFC 48. Double digit days of the UFC. Herb Dean reffed that fight, and Tim Sylvia argued about the stoppage. Wanted to keep fighting because these guys are they're cut from a different cloth. These guys that fight at pro MMA, just if you haven't figured that out yet, the guys that do this, I've interviewed enough of them, trained with a few that the guys with the endless gas tanks and just that extreme focus, that John Wick level focus. That's who competes at the professional levels of mixed martial arts, and they're just not. I don't want to say not human because they're actually very human, probably more human than us with their emotions and stuff, and just being able to be that focused on something. So Tim Sylvia protested that, and Herb Dean was the ref. Herb Dean came under fire, and then it came out later that both Bones and Sylvia's arm. You can see it if you ever watch it. Then you could research it. Sylvia's arm was broken. So I mean, it's funny because not maybe earlier or sometime last year, just before maybe last year or the year before, it was not too long ago. Tim Sylvia had to have screws put in to replace that. He wound up having more fights after that, coming back, but afterwards he realized that Herb Dean was right, and he saved him from possibly getting more damage done. And Herb Dean heard the arm break. When you have an arena full and adrenaline's pumping and stuff like that. Apparently, I mean, I rolled with a guy that did the same thing. That everyone in the room heard it, but he didn't hear his own arm break. So some people are just they're focused when you're that present into something. Sometimes you just don't notice those things. All that to say, Herb Dean is not a bad ref. I know maybe lately he's made a couple of questionable calls, but I mean, maybe, again, complacency happens to everybody. Sometimes we get a little ho-hum about our gigs, and, maybe he just needs a vacation or something. I mean, technically, with COVID, maybe some people don't need stuff to do, and he can't take a vacation. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's all. That's all I'm going to say about that. So talking about some of the enough about the wins off the card. There's some losses that came out of here that I wanted to mention. Oh, I got into the whole thing about the heavyweight main event because of Derek Lewis's power. So with the interviews, I just wrote something up that's going to be published soon on the MMAnews.com from the Cyril Gane interview when James Lynch asked him about the entry of John Jones into the heavyweight division. And it seemed like a lot of people online had a lot of comments about John Jones coming into the heavyweight division because now, and I know light heavyweight is only a difference of maybe 15, 20 pounds, right? 205, and anything over 220. Somebody can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. 220, 225 and higher or something like that. 220, 265. I forget the numbers. But the entry of John Jones into that division means so everyone has a puncher's chance in the fight, right? But Jones is going to run into more people that have a puncher's chance in this division. When you look at the Derek Lewis's, the Francis Ngannou's, the tacticians, the adaptable tough guys like the champ Steve Miocic, who always gets kind of flamed when matchups are. He's always a champion, and he's the guy still people make him the underdog. I don't know why. Look at his fight against Francis Ngannou. Look at how he fought Alistair Overeem and all his other title defenses. Even when he was losing to DC and then figured out how to beat him. When he beat him in the rematch or the second fight, right? Because they fought 3 times. But I hope I'm remembering that right. I'm on medication, folks, so I'm sorry. But excuse me. The so John Jones cleared out the light heavyweight division, leaving it for all these other guys that are there now to make names for themselves. And now we're going to see, one thing about the Cyril Gane interview is now we're going to see Jones is taking the time to get his weight up so he can handle that type of power and see if he can adapt what's been winning for him so far as a light heavyweight in the heavyweight division. But I feel like he's going to have a lot of problems. I mean, technically, I know his Jones' one loss is a DQ over is it Matt Hamill, and because he did the 12-6 elbow, which is a no-no, but or whatever it was, some type of strike that I know Dana White's tried to get overturned, but that seemed to be a popular thing of how many guys the matchups for John Jones at heavyweight are main events, sellable pay-per-views and enticing versus what we've seen, every time there was a main event with John Jones at light heavyweight that didn't include him and Cormier, I want to say of his recent fights, I mean, I don't want to say they weren't as, because I try to watch everything, so I'm always excited to hear about, especially guys like that at that level with the talent of Cormier and Jones. That's always a great chess match to watch, especially an Olympian versus the martial arts anomaly that is John Jones, because he's just seemed to, I mean, I think he's only a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, he literally just picked up the fight game, like he was plugged into the Matrix and they inserted things into his mind. Especially when you think about his path to the title and how long. I mean, yes, the out of the personal life stuff, the stuff with the crash and the times he's been stripped, but every time he gets the belt back, he keeps it, and the only time he technically loses it is against himself when you think about it. So it's going to be interesting because there's a whole new crop of guys that can probably beat. And mind you, he's older now. We don't know how well he's going to. I mean, we can see he looks good when he gets big or whatever, but we don't know how well he's going to handle a live, the fight camp, a live fight against guys like the Derek Lewis's, the Ngannou's, the Stipe Miocic, and what have you in the heavyweight division. So I'm definitely excited to see him enter it. There was another fight on here that I really wanted to mention, and it was the main the catchweight bout between Jared Gordon and Danny Chavez. Jared Gordon is as tough as they come. If you ever see that fight, I forget who did it to him, but he gets a Suluev stretch put on him, and he does not tap from it, which anybody that gets put in that is tapping. If you don't know what the Suluev stretch is, it's when someone takes your back and you're defending the choke and you tripod up and you try to, there's guys that'll tripod up and try to shake the guy off so that they fall off. So in that transition, the guy on your back grabs one of your ankles and you're essentially getting your leg stretched up against your own body. It's like a knee bar, really. And Jared Gordon got put in that and did not tap, fought the rest of the fight. I think he lost by decision, but tough as they come. So here in the Northeast, there's like every region has their own tight-knit community of MMA fighters of all levels and martial artists. When you're in the martial arts community, certain guys that have fought, taught, trained fighters and stuff like that. And Sergio Da Silva, who passed away just before Christmas at the end of last year, is one of Jared Gordon's best friends. So he dedicated the fight to him. It was pretty touching to see. They go back a long way. So he dedicated the fight to him in his post-fight interview. It was on the prelim, so that you didn't really get to see that on I don't know if they showed it on the broadcast, but if you again that UFC News Twitter handle, which is the official UFC News Twitter handle, if you're not following it, you should follow it so you can see that whole interview where he talks about Sergio Da Silva being in his corner and stuff like that. I mean, I knew Sergio as well, and his loss when he left us, when he left this earthly plane, it was definitely tough on a lot of folks that knew him, if only briefly, because he was a solid dude. So, but that was one fight that really stood out to me. Jared Gordon's always going to be one of those guys. He also mentioned that he renewed. I think it's his third renewal. He said first fight of his renewal of another 3-fight contract. So to come on a new contract with a win, that's always good, especially when you see all the news of fighters getting cut and stuff like that. So hopefully he can make a really solid run. At getting himself back a couple more W's, and the guy's definitely got the toughness, and talent is the talent in MMA always evolves as long as you keep focusing on it. The other one that I picked wrong. I know I'm going back to the card. Chris Duckhouse versus Alexei Olenek. It's hard not to pick when you see Alexei Olenek's name, and his submission wins. It's hard not to pick him to win by submission, but maybe he's got a really hefty MMA record. All right, so before we even go there, he's got a really heavy MMA record, and when you I guess when you've been fighting as long as he has, if you get wrapped up with him, yes, you're probably going to lose. But if you're wise enough to, I don't want to call him a one-trick pony, because what's Olenek's record? Let's see if I know it's crazy. It's one of those big ones like Overeem's. 59-15 with 1 draw. So he's got 59 wins. All right, 46 of those are by way of submission. So, if you picked him to win by submission, you're not that far off. But, in the case of UFC Vegas 19, his opponent, Chris Duckhouse, sorry if I'm messing up your name, Duckhouse, was kind of new to stay off the ground and come at him with a flurry in the first round. I think that finishes up pretty nice, but I'm not going to look for it because we're just about to run out of time. So great fights last night. I was certainly happy with a card that brings a heavy amount of finishes. It keeps the night moving. These ESPN Plus cards definitely have a little bit of an earlier start time that, as an East Coast fight fan, I'm happy with. Because when them pay-per-views come, boy, I'm up until like 3 o'clock in the morning watching for stuff. But thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Sorry about all the stuttering and coughing and clearing the throat, but I am on medication to get rid of this nonsense. But make sure that you like and subscribe to the MMAnews.com YouTube channel for more of these, more interviews. Again, we have 3 fighters, both main event guys, and Alex Hernandez, Rosenstrike, Guine, and Hernandez on the YouTube channel. So check out those interviews before they fight this weekend. Hopefully the fights don't fall through, as we've seen. Making fights in COVID it's hard enough making fights in COVID, let alone with health, all the extra protocols and stuff happening. And make sure you go to MMAnews.com for more MMA news from articles from myself and everyone else at the team there. And if you like what I do, you can follow me on Twitter. I will be tweeting. Hopefully, when this all clears up, I'll have 2 functioning hands that I can use regularly again, and I'll be tweeting the fights over on Twitter. If not, you know why. Thank you so much again. Enjoy your Sunday. Stay warm, stay safe, stay healthy. I'm tapping out. Peace.